My name is Evelyn Grave, and I'm 28 now, living a life in Manchester that feels a million miles away from the one I grew up in, yet some parts of it are etched into my very bones. Looking back, my childhood wasn't exactly a fairy tale. It was more like a survival guide written in fear, mostly thanks to my older sister. She was 3 years my senior, and those years felt like an insurmountable power gap. She carried a weight of rage and hate, I suppose from our father not being around much, but she didn't carry it quietly. She dumped it all, every last bitter drop, right onto me. It was a constant storm of hitting, yelling, and just plain cruelty. She even hurt our dog once, our sweet family dog, just because she hated seeing me happy, pulling him away from me with unnecessary force. It's funny how moments like that stick with you, isn't it? They become anchors in your memory, heavy and cold. For years I just took it. I was smaller, weaker, scared. I learned to fight back with words eventually, spitting venom she taught me, but any attempt to defend myself physically would just make her scream bloody murder and usually get me into more trouble. I knew I couldn't win her way. But as I got older, even by just a few years, a different kind of thoughts started bubbling up. My sister was a whirlwind of emotion, her moods shifting like the Manchester weather, and I realized that volatility could be a weapon if you knew how to wield it. I wasn't strong enough to fight her with my fists, but maybe, just maybe, I was smart enough to fight her with something else entirely. When I was 12, there was one particular week that pushed me right to the edge. She was especially awful, her usual nasty behavior turned up to 11. Every word was a jab, every look a glare. I remember she had this country music concert planned for the weekend, something she was really looking forward to with her friends. Every time she'd unleash one of her tirades on me, I'd do what I'd learned to do, crumple up, pretend to cry, and run off to my room, slamming the door just hard enough to sound convincing. She loved seeing me upset, she fed off it. She'd always think she'd won and stomp off downstairs, probably to watch television or brag about how she'd made me cry. What she didn't see, couldn't see, was the cold, hard look that replaced the fake tears as soon as the door was shut, the quiet, simmering anger that was starting to boil over into something more deliberate. That week, something in me snapped, or maybe it just solidified. I decided she needed to feel a fraction of the discomfort she so freely dished out. I needed to hit her where it would really sting, not just physically, but socially, emotionally. Started small, just a thought, really. I knew we had a wasp trap outside in the garden, one of those yellow plastic ones filled with that sickly sweet, sticky liquid that attracts them. An idea sparked. What if I could make her unattractive, smelly perhaps, something subtle she wouldn't immediately connect to me? So starting that Monday, I began collecting small amounts of the wasp trap solution. It was tricky, taking just a little bit at a time, sneaking it into my room. Shared a Jack and Jill bathroom, which was a nightmare in itself, but it also offered opportunities. Each time I'd fake my tears and retreat, I'd take less than a tablespoon of the gooey, syrupy stuff and carefully, sneakily pour half into her shampoo bottle and half into her conditioner. Just a little, hoping it would mix in and leave a faint, unpleasant odor, something sticky or off about her hair. It wasn't much, but it felt like a start, a tiny act of rebellion and a seed of a plan. It felt daring, risky, and just a little bit wicked, but then Friday came. That day she was pure poison. We were arguing and she actually tried to kick me down the stairs. My heart hammered against my ribs, and then she threatened to stab me. She stood there, eyes blazing, saying the words, and something inside me went completely cold. The line I thought I wouldn't cross, the tiny bit of hesitation I had about the wasp trap solution, it vanished. Nothing, absolutely nothing, was off the table anymore. I'd initially even considered adding something else, something truly foul, earlier in the week, but had decided against it, thinking it was too far. But now, after she threatened to kill me, too far didn't exist anymore. My plan escalated rapidly. The wasp trap solution was no longer enough. I remembered that truly foul idea I'd dismissed, urine. It was disgusting, yes, but it was also potent and deeply humiliating. I started collecting it in a small plastic bottle, hiding it away. To make sure it was as potent and nasty as possible, I even left the bottle sitting in the sun on my windowsill during the day. The heat would make it warm and amplify the smell. It was vile even to me, but the thought of her, the person who had tormented me for years, being subjected to it, it fueled me. My opportunity came late Friday afternoon. She was running late, getting ready for her precious country concert, rushing around, stressed. This was perfect. She'd shower quickly, less likely to notice anything off about her shampoo and conditioner. I knew her cheap perfume would probably mask any initial smell, but I was banking on it wearing off once she was out, at the venue, surrounded by people. While she was rushing about downstairs, I went into the bathroom. I carefully added a significant amount of the sun-warmed, foul-smelling liquid to her shampoo and conditioner bottles, mixing it in as best I could with a quick shake. It was nerve-wracking, my heart pounding, but the cold determination kept my hands steady. After she'd showered and rushed out the door, smelling faintly of her cheap perfume, I went back into the bathroom. I poured out some of the tainted product from her bottles into the toilet, and quickly filled the bottles back up with a watered-down, heavily scented flowery soap I found under the sink. I cleaned up any drips, making sure there was no trace. Toiletries weren't something we usually fought over, but I was paranoid about leaving any evidence that could point back to me. I had to be careful. The wait felt endless. I tried to act normal, tried to blend into the background. When she finally came home that night much later, she wasn't singing or happy. She was annoyed, complaining loudly about the concert. Specifically, she kept going on and on about how there were tons of wasps everywhere and how she couldn't enjoy herself because they kept bothering her. A slow, cold wave of satisfaction started to spread through me. It worked. My disgusting, awful plan had worked. Later that night, I overheard her talking to our mother, crying. She was absolutely distraught. Her friends, she said, kept mentioning that something smelled bad at the concert, but they couldn't figure out what it was. She was mortified, convinced they all thought it was her, that she smelled bad. The wasps had clearly been attracted to whatever foul concoction was now mixed in her hair, and she'd gotten strung multiple times. Hearing her humiliation, her genuine distress over something I had orchestrated, was a feeling I can barely describe. It was a dark kind of joy, a twisted sense of justice I had never felt before. It was schadenfreude pure and potent. The best part, she was so utterly miserable about the whole concert ordeal, so caught up in her own embarrassment and discomfort, that she didn't have the energy to lash out at me for the next 2 weeks. It was the longest period of peace I'd had in years. That moment, seeing the physical proof of my revenge and hearing about her social humiliation, it was a powerful, defining moment. It's the only time I've ever acted on a revenge fantasy, the only one I ever needed to. And honestly, looking back, knowing what she did to me, knowing the fear I lived with, there isn't a single ounce of regret in me. Not one. If I could go back in time, knowing everything that happened, I would do it again in a heartbeat, gleefully. It was a line crossed, yes, a dark act born from a dark place, but for that brief period I felt a twisted sort of power, a release from years of fear. It was wrong, I know, but it felt like the only way to breathe.